Hello and welcome to my podcast 9394. I am Travis Roy. I hope you're doing well. I'm excited today to have on a fresh guest, someone I'd never met before until doing this episode with them. Chris DeCarlo has come on to talk about what is easily the most obscure band that I've done on this show. He came on to talk about the band Icky Boyfriends and their 1993 album, I'm Not Fascinating. I had never heard of them, but I was eager to get into a band and album that Chris was so excited about. In other news, I deleted my Facebook app from my phone a couple months ago. I didn't delete my account, I just deleted the app. And I had really been weaning off of social media for some time, but now I'm pretty much operating mostly without it these days. So forgive me if I'm not very attentive to the 9394 Facebook account anymore. I instead downloaded Duolingo because I've always wanted to learn Arabic. I've learned little bits and pieces of Arabic throughout my life. I figure if I'm going to be spending time on my phone, this fucking black box that I'm addicted to, I might as well try and be more productive. My next step is trying to end all the doom scrolling. Working on that. I don't need to know all of the news in all of the world at all of the times. Or at least, I know that academically. I don't always know that when I'm just laying on my couch, scrolling and finding out all the worst things that have happened. So that's the update with me. I'll wrap it up here and get into the episode with Chris. Check it out.
Hey, Travis. Can you hear
Chris. Me? Yeah, I can hear you just fine. How you doing?
Awesome, Mez. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, dude.
I've seen you a million times in all the Cinema 9 podcasts, so it's like surreal finally actually like talking.
Yeah, like you can interact with me. I'm a real person.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly, right, yeah.
Have you done much podcasting before?
So during the pandemic, like a lot of people, I started a podcast. I had started a podcast with my friend. So just a little bit of background about me. Based out of Boston, Massachusetts, just a little bit north of there. Uh-huh. And my friend and I started a blog called Kids Like You and Me in 2009. And we just got involved in the Boston music scene and just general underground punk music. And that kind of, morphed into like a record label, putting on shows and stuff like that.
Okay.
And during the pandemic, when there was no shows to do, we started a podcast, and honestly, just we didn't keep up with it once things came back. Mm-hmm. Like I admire your tenacity and persistence, and just in general consistency in putting out content and good content too. But
thanks, man.
You're much better than we were at it.
The trick is I do terrible with change. I'm bad with change. So once I start something, I'm like, I can't stop. I just can't. Yeah. So that's where the consistency comes from, or attempted consistency. Everything I do, I try to do like once a week, and then I'm like, I just pile more on for myself. So what's the name of that podcast if people want to check it out, even if it's defunct?
Oh, yeah. It was just Kids Like You and Me.
Oh, okay. So continuation.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Which album are you here to talk about with me today?
So I'm here to talk about, and I know this is audio only, but for your sake, I will show you some visuals. So I'm here to talk about the I'm not fascinating by the Icky Boyfriends, and I realize most people have probably not heard any of those words before ever.
You know, it's funny. I like to think of myself as someone who like knows a lot about music from the era. In a recent episode, I even referred to myself as Mr. 9394, which led to a lot of cringing in the editing process. I'd never heard of these guys. I'd never heard of this band until you emailed me, so I'm excited.
Yeah, totally. It's not like a particularly well-known band or record. They're fairly obscure, but your listeners or you may know the band The OCs. Have you ever heard of them?
I can't say that I have.
Okay. I will say, once again, just get it with the underground stuff, because I've been knee deep in this stuff since I was a teenager, and not in an elitist way at all, but I listen to like largely a lot of this already sounds douchey to me. I'm not sure if I can swear or not, but
oh, swear all you want. It's
okay. Yeah,
it's
I can't remember.
I
I was pretty sure I could, because I've listened to a number of the album once, but I like, okay, yeah, I mean that makes sense too, also considering some of the material, but anyway, but yeah, no, I know it almost sounds like a douchey, but like it just is. I just being around a lot of that stuff, and then like you just get knee deep into underground music, where that became most of my life.
It's awesome,
and that was most of what I was listening to. So like, yeah, I don't know. So the OCs are like a really huge band to me. Like, you know, to my perception of like, I'm out of the loop on a lot of like bigger like popular stuff, but that's like they're fairly like well-known band, I think.
Are they currently working? Are they like a current band?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like when they come to town, they'll play like around here. They play the Royale in Boston, and that's like 1,000 something capacity, maybe like something. So that's like a big place to me. Like we'll see like house like shows in people's basements or like little bars and stuff like that. So that's a pretty big venue.
Sure.
To me. But John Dwyer of the OCs, his favorite band is the Icky Boyfriends, and I think I first heard of them when Nardwuar. You know Nardwuar?
So I'm 44. At about 30, everything just shut down for me. Maybe 35 in terms of like getting into new bands. I know that there's new good stuff coming out, but I find myself much more just looking backward and like getting into Icky Boyfriends, for instance, like getting into stuff that I had missed. I'm just a lot more interested in that. So I am totally checked out on current music, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's hilarious. It's that Nardwuar, though, is an interviewer, although he was in a number of bands.
Oh, okay.
But like, check out his stuff. Actually, I'm surprised he actually hadn't heard. He's been around since like the mid '80s.
Oh, okay.
So like he has like
I got no excuse then.
No, it's okay. It's no, he's hilarious. Like I recommend. He's interviewed everybody.
How do you spell Nardwuar?
Nardwuar, I think.
Oh, just like it sounds.
Nardwuar, the human serviette. He's like, you name it, probably. He's interviewed like Snoop Dogg, I think, probably more than anyone. But like, yeah, you name it, like, you know, Steve Albini or whatever. So like anyone from like obscure bands. Some of his classic ones are with like Sonic Youth and Lydia Lunch in the 90s. He interviewed Kurt Cobain, but you know, then he also interviews like fairly obscure people. So he interviewed John Dwyer from the OCs. And the Icky Boyfriends came up. That's, I think, how a lot of people, like my generation, heard of them. And I'm 34. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you would have been pretty young when this stuff was coming out. Okay. Well, let's get more into that. I almost skipped the part that I that's right. You had some stuff to show me. Let's see. All right, so you got Icky Boyfriends. I'm not fascinated. Is that the vinyl?
That's the vinyl. So this, like I had mentioned in the email to you, it's hard to find. It's like, I want to say this is the most expensive record I own. It's it was like $120. That's
a pretty penny for an album.
Yeah. So
you're a collector, and you're like, no matter what, I'm getting this. I don't care how much it fucking costs. You got a couple 45s there as well. Okay.
Yep.
So you're like digging, and this stuff is not being produced now, I imagine, right? You're having to like go back and find like vintage shit.
Yeah,
right?
These are they're out of print, the 45s. There was also, I have a live album that John Dwyer from the OCs released on his label in 2013. so they did a reunion show.
Okay.
They've done a number of those.
Yeah, are they technically still together, Icky Boyfriends?
No, they're not.
Okay.
They'll do like one-offs, and it's kind of funny too, just getting with the band. I mean, I've on the podcast, we ended up actually my friend was switching computers, and unfortunately, we lost the interview. And we also originally wanted to get all three of them, but we interviewed Jonathan Swift, the singer,
And you lost the interview? That's heartbreaking.
and we lost the interview. And then the drummer Tony Bedard, I see him every year at this festival called Goner Fest in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gotten to know those guys over the years. I still haven't met Shay, who's the guitarist, bassist. But yeah, it's pretty cool. They also just interacting with some of these.
That's very
people
cool.
Too.
Yeah, it's awesome to be able to meet your heroes, especially when they're not like heroes that are going to be dicks because they're super famous. They're more just like, oh, you appreciate what we did? Thanks.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So speaking of people that aren't very famous, one last thing about myself.
Totally.
Before I'm just curious. So I always start the episodes asking my guests how we know one another, but you and I have not met. So I'm just out of curiosity,
Sure.
did you get into Cinema 9 first?
Yes.
Okay. How did you get into Cinema 9?
I honestly don't know. It just like, however the algorithms work.
Just showed up.
I probably, if I had to guess, I can't remember, but I'm, much like you, not quite on your level though. I watch a ton of movies. I'm more of a music guy.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely tell, like, obviously you're a big music guy. I'm a big movie guy, but it sounds like you have more of the like tracking down stuff and keeping up with stuff. I'm more that way with music.
Yeah, that sounds right. I will keep up with new movies, but I lose track of new music. Yeah, you're right.
So what I do though is I watch a lot of often older movies. I watch new stuff too, but so I was probably like looking for a review of True Romance or whatever.
Okay. That's
or
way back.
Whatever it is, and then found. So there you go. Yeah, and I actually have. I think I did. I don't know if I saw that when it came out or it was like shortly after you guys posted it, but like I've been following it for a number of years.
Oh wow,
and,
that's awesome, man! Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. It's still very exciting to me when it comes up on the like you're gonna be reviewing like Bottle Rocket or whatever you've done. Yeah,
we've done a lot at this point. Yeah, we just recorded our 210th episode recently, so starting to get to be like, did we do that movie? Oh, I don't remember if we did that movie. It's starting to get like that, which. Yeah, it's good. It definitely got us through the pandemic. And then I got it in my head to start doing this podcast just because I really just wanted to talk about these albums from this era. It's hard to find people necessarily that are into it. Well, that's not true. It's hard to find people that want to talk about it, I guess. I'm lucky to be able to get a lot of my friends on. But yeah, but I'd really appreciate you reaching out. I mean, like, every episode I'm like, hey, anybody come on and reach out. I've only had a handful of people do it. So it's it's cool that you did. And clearly your love for Icky Boyfriends is strong enough that you will be like, yep, I'm going to reach out to this stranger on the podcast. And you have an Icky Boyfriends cover band. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We're called Nervous Guys, which is a reference to one of their songs called Nervous Guy. Let's see. I think since 2019.
Oh, okay. That's a minute.
Yeah, although we not that often. We don't really do shows that often. So we're all very random. And this is another thing with like, it's always weird to talk about yourself, or at least I find that way.
It is.
Yeah. But again, just being around the Boston music scene, we've always been kind of just those like weirdos that like do whatever. Basically, we've always had we had another band called Johnny and the Food Masters. Okay.
Can people find this stuff anywhere? Is it
totally. Yeah.
On Spotify and whatnot?
Not Spotify, but Bandcamp and YouTube.
Bandcamp and YouTube. Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think my standards of what's considered weird or acceptable or, I don't know, is off perhaps from a lot of other people.
That says good things about you though, I feel like,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but it's odd though. So I kind of usually just, as far as any sort of like music thing, just do something and then later go back and try to justify rather than be like, I guess the name Nervous Guys is almost like a misnomer because we don't really have that often. Like I don't personally relate to the like apprehension, be like, I don't know if I should do this or not kind of thing. I just usually do it and then look back and like, oh, that was kind of stupid or not, and it was cool. But yeah.
Just kind of going with the moment wherever the art takes you, right?
Exactly. If it's not, it's sort of like I heard a quote once. It's like if you're like ever like, huh, should I do this or should I not do this? Like if you're not putting yourself or someone else in danger and it's not like immoral or something, then go for it. And it's as simple as that. You know, I mean, if you're not doing something that's, you know, unethical, in other words, and you're not putting anyone in danger, which I guess is also the ethics part, then just go for it. And I think I try to lead by that as much as I possibly can. And I would be lying if I said I do that every time with every decision I make.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might have a little bit more apprehension and anxiety than you, but not a ton. I do feel like I'm big on, like, you know, the pursuit of happiness, the American idea that, you know, we can do whatever we want so long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of others. As Billy Zane said in the Tales from the Crypt movie, Demon Knight, he says, if it makes you feel good, do it, which I feel like that's wise words.
Totally.
Love is free. Free is love. Love is touching. Touching love.
But yeah, the Nervous Guys thing was 2019-ish, and then like out of town shows basically.
That's cool. I mean, I imagine that, there's a slim fan base, especially out in Boston, right? I mean, like, do you get a lot of love for Icky Boyfriends out in Boston?
No, not at all. Actually, it's funny is we've only done like one or two, and they were both impromptu.
Oh, okay.
So like we did something in Western Mass, and then actually also brief stories. The kind of origin, besides just being a big fan of Icky Boyfriends, was at this festival I mentioned earlier, Goner Fest in Memphis. I go every year, and Icky Boyfriends played one year, except it was like 2011, so it was way before I heard them. I first heard them in 2016, I think. I offhand made the joke because it was like September, the festival's in September every year, so people were talking about doing Halloween cover bands, whatever, like we're gonna do B-52s, etc. So forth. And I made the joke to Tony B, the drummer of Icky Boyfriends. He was at Goner Fest. I had met him before that too. Like I said, we both go there every year. And I was like, we're gonna, like my buddies, we're gonna do an Icky Boyfriends cover band, tribute band. Yeah. And that was just a joke. And like a week or two later, he posted online. And also Bob McDonald is like another guy who saw Icky Friends with Tony since the 80s, saw him, I think was at their first show in 89 or whatever, called us Nervous Guys. And that was literally just, he made a post on like social media of like this whole thing, and it got like tons of comments and everything. I'm like, I guess we should do it now. And we just booked a show like out of town in Western Mass, which people aren't familiar. Like Western Mass part of the state is like very far from like 2.5 to anywhere to like 3 hours away from Boston, which to like Boston people, anything more than like 20 minutes sometimes is out of the way. They're like, oh, I don't want to go over there.
Sure. Yeah.
Whatever. So it's a completely different scene. That was cool. And actually we're booking a tour right now.
Oh, that's cool.
For April. So it's like not going too far, but just kind of along the East Coast, and like probably going to go as far as DC or something, Philly, New York or something.
If you make it to Detroit, let me know.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I was gonna say you're in Detroit. I was gonna say I didn't know where in Michigan or whatever, but yeah,
I live right on the border of Detroit, like literally like 2 blocks from the border of Detroit. So
wow, okay, cool.
Basically a Detroiter.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. I'm like outside of Boston, like 30 minutes or so, but I just say Boston, of course. So, you know,
when you're dealing with big cities, the sprawl, it's all just one.
Exactly.
Big thing.
Exactly.
Let's get deeper into I'm Not Fascinating.
Yeah, totally.
I'm excited to get into this. I will say, like, some of this is a little rough.
I was going to say, I wanted, as an outsider, I wanted to hear your opinion. And again, this once again goes back to my earlier point of being just knee deep in general music that is so on the fringes, where like my like standards of it are totally off, and like I can like step outside my taste and be like, oh yeah, I can hear why people would think this or that, but it's like it's weird. It's like anything else in life. Once you get like caught up in something, you almost like it just you start to hear things differently. You see things differently. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
Whatever you're up close to, whatever you're personal with, is
Yeah.
gonna feel normal and good to you, or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
And this is definitely like I'm listening to this stuff. I feel like it gets a lot better as it goes along.
Oh, interesting.
You know
Really?
what I mean? I feel like there's like a progression in the songwriting and like even like the recording as the album goes on, and it's so raw, which is great. And I feel like you're listening to some band that like, okay, so they formed in '89, so I feel like these guys are probably big on like Dead Kennedys and New York Dolls.
So that's like, yeah.
Right? Am I correct? Are these big influences?
I don't think so.
Oh, really? But I hear it.
Yeah. Right. So I was gonna say one of the first things I picked up on was the vocals, which are so upfront, and it reminds me of Jello Biafra.
Yeah, that's the main thing. The delivery is a little bit Jello, not in a bad way, but punk rock.
They're from San Francisco, Icky Boyfriends. Dead Kennedy, San Francisco.
So not an accident, probably. Yeah.
Right.
But they're not exactly punk, right? They're like punk, but like kind of.
It's weird. So I
indie.
think of them as a punk band, but you're right. So that's the other part that is very fascinating to me is the genre bending.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, we could take this a number of ways of analyzing this record, and one of the ones I definitely wanted to talk about because, as you said, it is pretty rough. And like, I think a lot of people, understandably, because I'm not here to defend the music as much as like expressing my love for it, because they really are one of my favorite bands ever.
That's awesome.
And like, it's probably bizarre to most people that I would say, oh, this is my favorite album from the 90s, but it's true. And like, I think it would be totally fair to someone to be like, oh, this sounds like shit, or I don't like this, or whatever. If you can get past the raw, shitty, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of stuff going on, just lyrically, musically, even recording, but genre bending. Really, there's some rock songs, for lack of a better word, but there's a lot of like poppier, soft stuff, and then there's more like ideas that are like fragments of stuff, and just like almost like not spoken word, but stuff like that could be really like poetry, but like music in the background.
This is an album that is extremely alive.
Yes.
One of the things I love about the era of music is that you often get this feeling when you're listening to an album that stuff is being created as you're hearing it, right? Like it's like we're playing with genres, we're inventing new genres in a way, or inventing our own sound in ways that I feel like doesn't happen as much anymore. And you definitely have this very lively feel on this album, like these guys are living in this art that they're creating. But I got to start with the big question, man. What is your favorite song of this album?
Yeah, I mean, and one last thing on just even like before, and we can get into this more of like the raw nature of the album, just like reading the back cover of it is, before I get into my favorite song, it says recording location, Lowdown Studios. So there is one, because you can tell there's a little bit uneven as far as the like sound quality at times.
Yeah.
The other ones are, and it notes the different tracks, and it tends to make sense. But the other ones are 18 Sycamore. So I think it's just honestly somebody's house.
Yeah.
7745 Baker. And then the other one just straight up says Dave Steiner's house. So like, I mean, it's definitely, it changes the context of a lot of this stuff because, when you're listening to a lot of albums, even ones that are, it's like, oh, this was like a real, lo-fi, whatever album. And then, it becomes relative where some people are, some of the albums, even like the different crazy, whatever ones you want to say, often have probably higher budgets than people realize. And that doesn't mean good or bad. It doesn't translate into that. It just is like a different dynamic that to speak to what you were saying about just how raw it is. And my favorite song, it's really difficult for me to say because I really do love all of them, but there's different qualities for sure. Some of them are better songs and others I think are just more like ideas and could be fleshed out more, but also I think that's wasn't really their purpose either. So my favorite one is No Duh.
I'm your Icky boyfriend.
where they actually name check themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great way to open a set, too. We've definitely done that before. But exactly, they name check themselves. It's really fast. It's like a slow song, too. That's the other thing. What I really, really like about the band, and what I would say just satisfies my own personal taste, is I tend to be into music that's very upfront and in your face.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of subtlety with this record at all, in my opinion.
You're right.
Right,
it's pretty like, punk in that way. It's in your face.
Exactly. And I tend to react very well to that. I don't think anyone listens to this and goes, oh, this is really boring or whatever. Or you might have a reaction of like, oh, this sucks or whatever. And that was to give you some history on the band, that wasn't often a reaction. I mean, they were notorious for clearing rooms when they played. People didn't like them. They had more of a resurgence over time.
Uh-huh.
That being said, also some history, some background on them. Their first show ever was opening for the Melvins.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, this was granted like 1989. So it would have been before like Nirvana, exposing Melvins to people. But still, they were a popular band within the underground. So they were opening for the Melvins and they cleared the entire room. The Melvins liked them.
I was going to say, I bet the Melvins loved them.
The Melvins liked them. And I think I can't remember his name, but the person who put out one of their records was there apparently. So there's like one or two people, but most of the crowd just hated it. People over time have come to appreciate it, but I think a real genuine reaction, a lot of people is this like, what the fuck is this?
I won't pick a least favorite song on this album. I'll get into my favorite song in a moment.
Yeah, I'm actually curious more your take on it as someone who's like totally new to this band and sound and
coming in totally new. And I have appreciation for a lot of things that they're doing right off the bat. I mean, like I have a local band, or we had a local band here in
that's right.
Southeast Michigan.
You're a musician.
Yeah. But I mean, like a band that I wasn't a part of, there was a local band in Michigan called Shore, which they kind of remind me of a little bit in terms of the lo-fi and like the noise band nature. Cause there's kind of some noise happening with Icky Boyfriends, right? There's punk, there's almost like pop music, like you said, like pop rock almost to a degree, like underlying. And then there's just like straightforward, like abrasive noise in a good way. When I first put on the album and I heard Burrito, I was like, oh, what the fuck am I in for here?
Exactly. Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I'm not sure. But that's probably the roughest recording on the album too, right? Like, in terms of like quality.
Yeah.
And then it's also doing like, nursery rhyme shit. So I'm like, what are we doing here? But as I listened to the album a few times and got more into what they were doing and moved on quickly from that song, because I don't feel like that's representative of the album at all.
Right.
There's a couple songs that stuck out to me the most, but Amanda, I think, is the song that really that grabbed me the most. Singing about someone turned 21 and has a big head about it, I think.
Right, yeah.
But I do really like the vibe of the song. I really like the riff. Maybe you could tell me, there's just 3 guys in the band, right? Is that a guitar that the dude's playing that he just got like mega bass on, or is that like a distorted bass that I'm hearing? Well, what is happening?
I'm also not 100% sure. There's just 3 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's credited as William Bond here, but his name's Shay Bond, and it just says guitars next to his name. And so I've seen it before that he plays bass and guitar on the album. So I'm not 100%. Let me look at some of the... Yeah, so even like on one of the 45s, it says guitar, bass.
Because it definitely doesn't sound like this stuff is being layered. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't sound like I'm hearing bass and guitar. I feel like it's just like a one low-end instrument.
Yeah, same. So I'm not 100% on... I wish I had more information.
Well, no, that you're like a super fan, clearly, and that you don't know makes it even more fascinating to me, because it's like... Maybe he created his own instrument or something, or maybe he's playing the bass in a completely different way, or the guitar. You know what I mean? Like, there's something really creative going on here that a super fan and musician yourself, and we can't quite tell. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have a maybe not favorite song, but a song
Oh, Amanda.
that you? Oh, sorry, you just said that. That's right. I was gonna say actually with that too. That's actually as funny as that's not my least favorite, but it's one of my least favorite ones.
That almost doesn't surprise me. You know what I mean? Because like the song that's going to be maybe some of the songs are maybe more palatable and more.
Sure. Yeah.
I also liked What We Had, which I felt was also kind of.
I love that song.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Would be mad, but you knew what you wanted, and that was what we had. Oh, I had you.
I felt like those two songs were probably the most, and The Nervous Guy were the most like straightforward and accessible, I guess, for lack of a better word, kind of songs. But, it's all in the eye of the beholder or the ear,
Sure.
as the case may be.
I actually always felt that, like Frank's Mom, which is just kind of a straight up rocker, and they have several ones that are like that where the riffs are really similar. There's other ones called Ann Can Fly and Cape Mania. Those ones are all kind of similar.
A little bit, yeah, especially Cape Mania and Ann Can Fly, I thought.
Yeah. And so those are all I've always felt were like the most kind of straightforward, but maybe not musically as much. It's just like they're kind of like faster and they're more, I don't know, it's weird. I always think of like almost reminds me of like the Rolling Stones or something.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also like some of the other songs I really, really love are like Ecophobia. Has this like extremely messy but like just so loud reminds me of like Black Sabbath, but like a band, honestly, like almost like a garagey, not even garage rock as a genre, but like a band like of teenagers trying to imitate Black Sabbath.
Which that's how a lot of great music is made, right?
Yeah,
that's like how the Ramones helped create punk, is trying to emulate the Beatles, right? So I can definitely appreciate that. But I did get a big kick out of listening to that song. I'm like, not so prescient on the whole Ice Age coming thing on that one. I think we should have been more concerned about global warming.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's a metaphor he's making, but still.
Right, yeah. I think he changed it, so it's like, I'm just worried, sick about the greenhouse effect, and he talks about how, the new Ice Age is what I expect. He's changed it in, I think, the reunion shows, at least on one of the ones I saw on the live album. He says the new Ice Age is already here.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so that's the other part about there, which I often, just have, maybe it just tickles my sense of humor. Some of the lyrics were in...
Oh, God, It's a very funny
song. Yeah. Was it Fresno is one of the songs where he talks about his brother shooting like 22 economic students, and then later says, he goes like, and he was the good child.
Yes, dark but funny.
Very dark, yeah. So that's also too like John Dwyer. Again, you keep going back to him
from the OC.
From the OCs, yeah. He's also
the very different thing. The OC is something very different from the OCs, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But some of your listeners might know the OCs. They're like, a very different band, totally different band. But you could see why he would also enjoy. It's more like psych garage kind of rock stuff. It's all over the place. He's done noise stuff. But anyway, I think he used to describe and I could see this as well, like the Icky Boyfriends, when he's getting into them, like, it's like, oh, they sounded great after, like, a night of hard drugs or something. And, you know, I've never done any hard drugs, so I don't know that, but I can imagine. I don't know what that would feel like, but I can almost, like, picture it. There's something disorienting about the music that I can only imagine it being, like, this, adding to that what the fuck vibe.
There's also something about this album, this band, because I only listened to officially the first album. Like, I deliberately stopped at, like, where that album ends, you know. My knowledge is limited to this.
This is their only album. They have other songs.
They
have other stuff, but this is their only, like,
full length.
LP.
Yeah.
Full length, yeah.
I feel like there's also something happening here that's a bit of a throwback. Like, I get a late 70s vibe from some of what they're doing, right? Like, I mean, that's going back to the New York Dolls. There's something, that dirty kind of CBGB kind of sound that I could really imagine, like, okay, yeah, like, we just did all the cocaine. We did all of it. Let's listen to let's listen to some Icky Boyfriends.
yeah, exactly. To give, like, you know, almost like film, like a different cultural comparison, perhaps. I don't know if you're familiar with, like, the movies of, like, Harmony Korine or something, or like that.
I am, and I hate them.
Okay, I thought so. If I recalled, I was, like, pretty sure I remember you saying that.
Couldn't get through Beach Bum, for instance. I just not.
That's one of his weaker ones. Although I would say Gummo is in my, like, top 5.
Okay, now I know where you stand as far as your music. Because as far as your movie, because, like, Gummo to me is, like, people ask me, like, what's the worst movie you've ever seen? I'm like, oh, might be Gummo.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
But that's what he's going for, right?
Yeah, but what I guess to use the comparison I was going to say was that there's this, almost, you know, it is sort of I guess a good word to say it. There's this icky vibe to something that, what I would say, regardless of, I think, whether someone, like, loves it or hates it, I guess where made me think with the Harmony Korine thing is that it feels like alive in a way that other stuff sometimes it's like jarring almost. It's different, you know. I think you said before, this album feels very alive, and there's something like that where it's just like it takes you out of, like, oh, this isn't just back to your, you know, usual scheduled programming kind of thing.
Yeah, that comparison I definitely get. Whereas in film, I don't necessarily go for this vibe, but in music I can. I feel like I get your reference because both these artists, the Icky Boyfriends and Harmony Korine, are kind of giving the finger to the conventionality of the art form that they ordinarily would do. And in film, I find that I don't want to spend 2 hours looking at that myself.
That's fair.
But when it comes to music, I can get a lot more excited about someone like sticking up their middle finger to conventionality there. Because then it's like, yeah, it's alive, it's exciting, it's weird. But now I'm going to ask you the question that you probably dreaded more than what's your favorite song on the album? What's your least favorite song on the album? Yeah,
this one was difficult to pick. And as bizarre, if listeners listen to the album, make it through it. You know, I really sincerely, this is one of my favorite albums. And some of the songs, so, like, you know, I really do love these songs. And in general, I'm not a big album guy. I do listen to albums, but I'm more of a song guy. A lot of my favorite music is from the 50s and 60s and a lot of, like, oldies and stuff like that. I'm a huge doo-wop fan.
Interesting.
And 60s garage. I mean, I love a lot of punk stuff that was based around more like 45s. That's my main kind of large bulk of my collection. Now, when I say I have hundreds of LPs. I'm an obsessed music fan that I literally listen to, like, probably not an exaggeration, it could be anywhere up to like 100 new bands a week. So it's literally, and that, I have playlists and mixes that are in the hundreds and just go beyond.
You're a junkie.
I'm a total junkie for it.
Yeah, I respect that. That's awesome.
So, like, when I say I don't listen to a lot of albums, it's not, I still do, but, like, I'm more of a songs guy. So I don't, like, if I'm like, what's my favorite album? Which is hard to always answer, but, like, this one in particular is one where I actually really enjoy the bulk of the album. I enjoy all of it, but, like, I really don't. Also, let's do it on vinyl, so I don't skip around anyway. But, like, let's say if I was listening to it digitally, maybe there's a couple that would skip. So I don't consider, like, Neil's the song that's like a phone call. Yeah, I really consider that a song, so I won't take that one because that would be my obvious, like, least favorite.
Yeah,
I
but
think there's a few. Yeah, exactly. So I'd go back and forth, but I think I'll go with Hot and Hunky. love the sound of it, but otherwise, if it was just a random band, I'd be like, it sounds awesome. And it does sound awesome, but I don't think it brings anything to the table. There's a few of the songs like that I still enjoy, but they're more like ideas, and they kind of pale compared to the other ones.
It's hard to do that when you're talking about your favorite albums, because like you love every song on the album, so you feel like you're talking badly about one of your kids or something. But if you're really honest with yourself, you can usually be like, okay, there's one I love least, and I'm glad you're able to pinpoint one. I mean, to me, admittedly, it kind of swims in the mix with the others because I'm a lot less familiar with it.
Sure. A lot of it, at least for me, what I enjoy listening to it is that they bounce off each other. Very well, because again, this might actually be really unappealing to people, but I think this speaks more to me being a songs guy, where unless I'm missing something, it's not like this isn't, I'm saying this very jokingly, but this isn't like Dark Side of the Moon or like friggin' where there's a concept in there. At least to me, it's no, I mean, I don't know for sure, but what I imagine is they probably had a bunch of songs and they whittled it down to these 21 tracks in order to make an album out of it. And I think that's why and again, something that's appealing to me is the genre shifting. And what actually reminds me of another weirder band that's way more palatable than most people, way more popular that you have covered is like with Ween.
Okay.
That genre bending where it just could go to like Freedom of 76 to then like Joppa Road or whatever. I can't remember the order on that album, but just the different styles that it's not necessarily whether it flows as well. I mean, at least to my ears. But I just like that it's moving and it's moving around. And with this album, those start to recontextualize for me when you hear them side by side, like the song Fresno when he goes True Story. And then it goes, especially like on vinyl, it just sounds, it's a little crunchy on the record player. It goes True Story. And then it goes into right after the True Story at the very end. He just says it like it's not singing. It goes right into No Duh. And that riff, I feel like right after the True Story kind of thing, going into that No Duh riff, just in my opinion, just an excellent riff. Yeah. It's like, that's a great way to segue.
Okay. Yeah. And that says strong things if they really are taking the scattershot approach to recording and just kind of writing. Yeah. If they are able to kind of weave that all together in a coherent way. There's a lot more unity and fusion happening here than is immediately evident, I think. When you first put it on, it's like, oh, this is abrasive. But yeah, the more I listened to it, the more I started to see especially between the guitarist and the drummer. They're like they clearly played together a lot. They're tight. Right. All right. Time for the last question. Okay. Which is probably a near impossible one when you're talking about a band that hardly anyone's aware of.
I already know where this is going. Yeah.
What is the underrated song on this album? I guess at least for you, in your opinion.
Yeah. So there's no because I've met Icky Boyfriends fans, and they're dedicated. It really, another thing is where I get to the actual answer to the question.
You're big on preamble, I'm learning.
Yeah. I would say, like you said, it's a very impossible thing. And when you're dealing with these kind of things, it's not like, I listened to the Blue Album podcast, which that's one of my favorite albums from the 90s as well. Right on. It's like, I kind of feel like I'm not saying what you guys saying. I'm just sort of like spitballing, but it's like, I kind of feel like, St. Ain't So is overrated. Or I kind of feel like it's like, these are songs people know or whatever. Right. It's like, Surf Wax America. That's right. One of them is like something like, okay. It's like that doesn't get enough love. It's like, no, there's, exactly like you said, there's no, it's a huge album. So people definitely have underrated, overrated. So what I would say though, I'll go with the first song I ever heard from them and became the namesake. It was the Nervous Guy. What I think it's underrated is I think it doesn't even exemplify what makes the band. It's not even really actually, like, if you listen to most of the album, it's mostly faster, abrasive, loud kind of music. And I actually think that song is one of the ones that's a departure. But
I agree.
What it is, I think, is the best example of the what the fuck. While yet also, there's a lot going on where it's this pop song, at least genre-wise, it really is. And it's this, like, love song. But yet, at the same time, you're almost like questioning the sincerity of it, which I don't after a while. But when you first hear it, like I don't, even after like by the end of the song, I don't question the sincerity of it. Because I don't mean to hurt you, I don't want to make you cry.
when I see you. Guess I'm just a nervous guy. You know I dug you from the day we met. I didn't catch your name, but that didn't mean that I was gonna forget you.
It's because it sounds, because I had never heard them before when I heard the song. Never heard them before.
This is the
my
first
first
song
time ever hearing. That's the first song I heard by them, and I just didn't know what to make of it.
Mhm.
And I've heard way noisier, way weirder music, but it was a double thing. It wasn't that it was so weird. It was like, oh my god, this song's so poppy, it's so lovely and whatever. But it's also like, you listen to it's like crunchy, like percussion in the background. It's like this, like it reminded me. I don't know if you're familiar with Daniel Johnston.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Lo-fi again.
Yeah. So like when I first heard him, and I think Casper the Friendly Ghost was the first one I heard from him. That was what it reminded me of. Not necessarily like musically, but just that quality of like, on one hand, what the hell is this? But on the other hand, it was so endearing.
Well, that takes us full circle back to Harmony Korine again, because that song's used.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to say it because I immediately thought of, actually, that's, I think, the first, what I get mixed up. So I'm never sure if I heard about him first from Nirvana or from the Kids soundtrack,
which would have been around the same time anyway, more or less.
Yeah, and also I'm 34, so like there's, I think, with like us, like, one of the things I love about your podcast, both your podcasts.
Oh, thanks.
Is it puts in such a like time frame, especially with the Cinema 9, where like I feel like after watching a number of your videos, like I know these guys. I'm a sucker for, I love, even like if I'm out in public and I meet a bunch of people who are from the same town, and they're like, oh yeah, I remember, Joe Fitzsimmons, like Joe Fitzsimmons, of course. And it's like, I'm there and I'm like,
I don't know, Joe,
I'm so eager to keep, even though I have no idea who this person is, but it's like I love the fact that it's a mystery to me, and yet these people have this, like, of course. And he always wore, remember, he was a huge fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, and he used to play it all the time, and be like, I'm like, I have no idea, I have no connection to this whatsoever. So I love when you guys on the Cinema 9 are like just like shooting the shit and have all this like backstory and connection.
Thank you. Which I try to bring into this show too, with like bringing a lot of friends in,
The Ween one was great too. I listened to I think you did Chocolate and Cheese, and just hearing like those stories and everything. I love that. I love stuff like that because it gives you something more than just the music. Because I always feel like, that's just me. I mean, other people might feel like, I just want to hear about the record. I just want to hear about this or that. But I can listen to the record. I can't. But I found about you and your a teacher and everything, and your experiences. So I hear a lot there. I think, I don't know. But I mean, of course, my taste, being any indication of whether something's good or bad or normal or weird, is like, if this is pretty evident that I'm suspect.
Well, you like my podcast, so clearly you have excellent taste.
That's true.
That's
okay,
plainly
so yeah,
obvious
right.
to me.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
But my take on both podcasts, Cinema 9 and 9394, is that anybody can get on Wikipedia. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to learn you want to learn who produced it, you want to learn this stuff, like that stuff matters and it can come up. But like, it's, to me, far more interesting when people are talking about their personal experiences with the album, especially somebody that like got into this album, the Icky Boyfriends album, at, let's see, in 2016, you would have been 26.
26, yeah.
Which is, that's still pretty young. And to like dive in headfirst to this album that was already decades old at that point, and love it so much and bring it so close to you that you like fucking start a cover band and like get to know some of the actual guys in the band, like that to me is far more fascinating than just talking about Icky Boyfriends. You know what I mean? Yeah,
totally. I hear that. Yeah, and that's the same reason why I like your podcast.
Thank you. Well, on that note, is there anything else you want to say while you've got the platform about Icky Boyfriends or this album before we move on to other things?
Yeah, totally. For one, I appreciate you having me on. It was a total shot in the dark, and I didn't know if I was like, just, people say like certain things of like sometimes, and then they don't actually mean it. Not that I necessarily thought that, but I'm like, I don't know how many people, I don't know if like, especially I appreciate you taking a total like gamble, a total chance on an album that's, not like this like well-known album or anything like that.
I've never heard of it, but your love for this band became, it was so palpable in the email that you sent. I didn't even need to listen to him first. I was just like, yep, this guy loves this album that I've never heard of from this era. We're doing it. Absolutely doing it. So I appreciate you reaching out.
That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
It's nice you say. I mean, that's kind of, if I had to say in general, that's been like same thing with my buddy and I with the going back to the kids like you and me thing. That's kind of how we've always operated. And that's just, I think, how we've been successful with things where I think people see that passion way above our like either skills or confidence or talents or anything like that. I've said it before, I think talent is overrated. It's good. It's really good. It's necessary. I think it's amazing, but like hard work is underrated.
Passion over precision for me every time.
Passionate is underrated, I think, and just being generally kind is underrated. And,
it's punk rock now to be kind, right?
I think so.
I think so too. The whole world's getting pretty cruel. It's punk rock to be nice to people.
Well, exactly. My friend Jason Treffs, to give him a shout out, is a fellow Boston booker.
Hi, Jason.
Said, yes, hi, Jason, for sure. He said, he's like, I never bought into any of that, like that bullshit of like, be like, oh, you have to be like this, like a mean like punk person. He's like, people were mean and cruel and violent all way before punk rock existed. They'll be it way more after it. So you're not rebelling by being mean or being like a dick.
Yeah,
you're not rebelling against anything. Yeah, you're reinforcing shitty behavior. You're not changing anything.
Absolutely.
That being said, I still like a good fuck you attitude stuff, but you don't have to be a dick to do that either.
Yeah, you can say, punch up, right? Punch up, not down or even across. Punch up.
Even across too, yeah, merch too, yeah.
I wanna take some PCP and kill some pigs. I wanna take some PCP and beat up on some fucking pigs.
All right, man. So I always end my episodes with some sort of like other thing. I often will do trivia. I've got some trivia for you.
Okay. All right.
I've got 9 bands I'm going to give you in honor of Cinema 9. I'm going to name 9 bands. Some of them are from California.
Okay.
Some of them are not. So you're going to tell me if they're and I don't really know your taste, although I'm learning more about you. But so I just picked 9 indie bands that I like a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you 9 bands. You tell me if they're from California or not. Sound good?
Sure. Sounds good.
We'll start with one of my favorite bands from the era that I haven't gotten to do on the show yet. Drive Like Jehu.
Oh, I've never even heard of them.
Oh, okay.
Drive Like Jehu.
Then you're going to have a hard time with that one. But you can take a guess. It's a 50-50 shot.
You sure it is. I'm going to go with they're not from California.
They are from San Diego.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah.
Yola Tango.
Oh, okay. Well, I know Yola Tango. I'm not sure, to be honest, where they're from, but I'm going to say no, not from California.
You are correct. They're from Hoboken, New Jersey.
Okay. I had no idea they were from New Jersey, but I was almost like part of me was leaning towards New York.
I picked a bunch of these bands, and like some of them are some of my favorite bands, and I didn't know where fucking any of them are from until I sat down an hour ago to do this. I was like, how did I not know that? So it was a learning experience for me. This band I'm going to mention now was one of the few bands I did know. Actually, I think the only one that I knew. Well, 2 that I knew. Silver Sun Pickups.
Okay. It's funny, and this is I gotta stop with the
diverting off. Go ahead.
When you get into tons and tons of music, I think at times people then expect there's a bunch of bands I would listen to or know, but it's like, once again, when you're listening to so much stuff, some of the more obvious ones, you don't. I've only heard them in passing.
Oh, you've heard?
I know who they are.
Okay.
I know of them, and I probably listened to them, but I'm not sure. So I'm gonna go with not from California.
They're actually from L.A. Silver Sun is like a reference to a street, I think, in L.A. that they like would had a store on. They would like do pickups for liquor there. Anyway, I know you know the next band. Everyone knows the next band. Violent Femmes.
Yeah, of course. I want to say they're New York, so I'm going to say no, California.
They're not from California. You are correct. They're from Milwaukee, actually, which I did not know.
Okay, wow.
Total guess.
I don't know why I was thinking New York, but I didn't think they were from California though. Yeah.
I kind of felt like they had like a California vibe, but they're very Midwestern.
I can see that, apparently. But yeah. Okay.
Pavement.
Pavement's from. I know they're. was it like Stockton, California or something like that? They're from California.
Knew the state and the city. Yeah, that's impressive.
Okay, I was right. Yeah.
I've been listening to Pavement since like 92, 93. I had no idea they were a
Yeah, so
California
that's the
band.
first album on the podcast, right?
Yep.
Crooked Rain.
Yep,
I
Crooked
haven't
Rain,
listened
Crooked
to that one yet. I gotta get around. I've zipped around a lot.
Right on.
It's funny too. Like we talked about all the like I could and I'll maybe up the podcast can show you some weirder records or whatever. But I also listen to a lot of like popular music as well. And like I was listening to like Oasis and the Strokes this morning, and I was also listening to Pavement like a little earlier before the podcast. So.
Okay. It's fairly early that we're recording. You got up and listened to 3 different bands. Like you clearly are someone that
yeah.
It's just always on, huh?
Yeah, I'm always on. I was probably got to bed. I need to work more on my sleep. I was out last night till like 2:30, got up around 7.
Okay. Yeah, that's not something I do anymore.
No, I don't blame you. Yeah, it's not as cheap as we probably shouldn't, but
All right, you've heard of the next band I know too, Pixies.
yeah. Well, so I know they're from my home state. They're from Amherst, Mass, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. I figured you'd know that one.
Yeah.
Lemonheads.
They're also from Massachusetts.
They're also from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually know people in the music scene who are mutual friends and have played with Evan Dando, actually.
I kind of wanted to give you at least 1 or 2 that was like, we hope.
Those are good. Yeah.
Because I want, you know what I mean? I didn't want to like blindside you with stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially if you didn't know, say, like Drive Like Jehu.
Right.
Mountain Goats.
I know, once again, a band I don't think I've ever listened to them, but I know who they are.
Yeah, you had to have heard of them, I would figure. They're great. They're lo-fi acoustic stuff, or at least the earlier stuff.
Yeah, it's weirdly, the only reason they're listeners, they're a band I would imagine I probably would not be super into, and so I just haven't. I gotta get it.
Gotcha.
It's my taste, or I guess it's so odd. It makes it more odd is not what I listen to, but how I go about that. What I say often is I'm really interested in like immediacy or sense of urgency in music. That's why I really love a lot of pop music, or stuff that's maybe more abrasive, not as subtle, or something that's really kind of like jarring or weird. So I don't know them, but now I do want to listen to them to see if I just had I also try to listen to all different things. It's just a band I haven't gotten around to.
Right.
But state, I'm gonna guess that they're not from California.
They're from Claremont, California.
Oof, I'm not good at this.
It's tough to do this. I mean, you're winning. You're doing well. You're in the lead here. Don't worry. I will say, if you check out Mountain Goats, go into some of their earlier stuff. I recommend. They got more polished as they went on, but their early stuff is literally recorded, I think, on a fucking boombox.
Okay.
It is lo-fi as shit, and I don't think that there's a world of difference between the vocal stylings of John Darnielle from Mountain Goats and John Swift from Icky Boyfriends. I mean,
interesting.
Icky Boyfriends guys, he's more punk in his delivery, but in terms of like timbre and like kind of like tone, like there's definitely some similarities there. You might find it more jarring in a good way than you'd expect.
Yeah. I mean, also too, I try not to be like too like almost have like prejudice or something. I try to just listen to stuff and have more of an open mind. I think it's just one of the reasons why I haven't sought them out.
Sure.
I would never be like, I'm not going to listen to this. I just haven't gone out of my way to seek it out.
Yeah, clearly you listen to a lot. They're on your radar. You'll get around to them. Last band, hopefully not too obscure. Pinback?
I actually don't know them.
Don't know them?
What's the style of music?
Pinback is kind of electronic indie in a way.
Okay.
Part of this is like, we're not ages apart, you and I, a decade, but a lot of the bands that I'm into are probably just a little bit before your time.
That's, I think, the big thing for sure. I've started to notice that as well, even because I go to a lot of shows, like regularly. I'm going to shows or putting on shows or whatever. And so there's people who are even just a few years younger than me. And it's like, you notice that like some bands just don't have like, they may have even been like popular at a time, but they don't have like any sort of, real resurgence that even sometimes it happens the other way around. You know what I mean? Where like, I'm trying to think, I can't really think of an example off the top of my head, but I'm going to say Pinback, they are from California.
You are correct. They're from San Diego.
Okay.
You got 6 out of 9 right. That's pretty good, especially being that a couple of them you're pretty unfamiliar with.
Totally.
So
Yeah, totally.
you won. You get nothing. You get my applause. But that's
all right. Well,
you did good. You did
good.
You did good.
Oh,
but yeah, maybe I should have asked how old you were. Not that we're like grossly apart from age, but your point about shows is something that's interesting to me because I've been going to a lot of shows lately because a lot of bands are doing like 30-year retrospectives and like playing that album and that kind of stuff. And what I'm finding is that it's very dense with dudes that are my age and look like me, bearded and white and in mid 40s. And then there'll be like a subset of 20-year-olds.
Yeah, totally.
Which makes me so hopeful because like I love the fact that in every show I go to, there's like some like pretty young kids that are really into some band that's pretty old. So
yeah,
as much as I shit on Spotify, even though I use it, like the accessibility that everyone has to everything is really doing some pretty cool things for people in terms of getting them into anything, which is great.
I think, yeah, if you ever want me back, we could have a whole episode just dedicated to that. You can speak to that a lot more, but even in my growing up, I would, the album, like the that accessibility versus like, I need to get in utero today. And
right.
You don't have that immediate. I think there's lots of pros and cons. I think overall it's a net positive though, because of what you're saying. It's true. The accessibility, I know from like a lot of my Gen Xer kind of friends, and even to an extent like boomer friends or whatever, and to a small extent other like millennials, there's some of these divisions that just are either like a little bit there or almost completely gone. With younger people, they're like, wait, you can't listen to Billie Holiday, Kraftwerk, and the Germs all together? Like,
why not?
What? Oh, I have to be into punk. Yeah, I have to be into punk. It's not that never existed. It did. It was like very tribal to different ways, or like,
especially when you're younger.
Yeah, especially when you're younger. But some of that is still in their DNA, and like they might be so open-minded, but they're like, no, wait, I'm a punk guy. I'm a metalhead.
Right.
And it's so refreshing to hear and see like younger people who they don't even know what the hell you're talking about. They don't even they're like, what? And I think part of that is the accessibility.
I agree. Well, Chris, you are 100% welcome back on the show. I hope you come back.
Thank you.
Please do. Just let me, take a look at the era, see if there's anything else you want to talk about.
Yeah, there totally is.
I'm sure. I'd love to
I
have
would
you
probably
back.
pick something that's more well known just to like switch it up. But I also have one final request for you.
Shoot.
It's a request. I forget where I'm supposed to normally go for this, but with Cinema 9 podcast request, I will say.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
To see if it would hold up. It's a dark movie. It's a dark one. So I would say that. But I'm going to bring up the VHS. And have you seen this one before?
I have seen Leaving Las Vegas, and you have it on VHS. And I'll tell you what, we don't really take requests, but that's been on my radar for a long time.
Okay,
I'm a huge Nick Cage fan, as you may know from listening to the show, which, again, you clearly have excellent taste.
Yes.
And that's the first one he won an Oscar for. So it has been on my radar. And everyone knows Leaving Las Vegas is a laugh riot. It's just a bubble fest.
Exactly, yes. I mean, also with the kids, I believe they were neck and neck for Feel Good Movie of the Year, but they lost to Welcome to the Dollhouse.
That's great. And a good note to end on. Thanks again, man. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you. It was an honor. I really appreciate it, Travis.
A big thanks to Chris DeCarlo for reaching out and asking to come on the show. I'm so glad you did, man. I feel like I made a new friend and learned a lot of interesting things about a band that was completely new to me. So, much appreciated. I have found lately that the most humbling thing in my life, perhaps, was my recent attempt to get back into playing chess. I used to play chess as a kid, but wasn't that great at it. And then I got a little older and played it some more and wasn't that great at it then. And then my buddy Corey reached out and was like, hey, let's play chess online. I'm like, oh, sure, And I'm someone that thinks of myself as a relatively smart person. I like to think so. I'm a teacher. I'm well educated. I use polysyllabic words. I can't do strategy for the fucking life of me. I can't even do Stratego. I've never been that good at that game either. I've never been good at checkers. I don't know what I was thinking playing chess. Just a brutal reminder on a daily basis that I am not as smart as I think I am, which I don't want to labor under delusions or anything. I don't want false confidence. But on the other hand, it's good to learn our limitations, know where our weaknesses are. If ever I am at war for some reason and someone is like, hey, Travis, do some strategizing, I'd be like, no, I can't do that. I am limited in my functions. If you want to talk about something, I can do that. And you, listener, if you want to talk about an album with me, like Chris did, you can just reach out to me and do it. I'm happy to have new guests on. If you want to talk about something super obscure like Chris did, perhaps you'd be interested in talking about the album The Metro Shifter Capsule from the band The Metro Shifter. This is their song Drive from that 1994 album, and they don't sound anything like the Icky Boyfriends, but they are a pretty obscure band if you get down to it, and they're really fucking good. But you don't have to pick an obscure band, you can pick any band you want that isn't Cypress Hill. Just reach out to me at 9394podcast@gmail.com and let me know. Or, just say hi, that's always welcome. I like messages of hello. I like it when people rate and review the show on Apple and Spotify. That would be great. Please do that generously, please. If you want more of me and my podcasting prowess, which might not be much better than my chess skills, I don't really know. It's harder to gauge. Where is I going with this? Oh, yeah, other podcasts. Cinema 9, the numerical 9. Cinema 9 is a movie podcast that I do with my friends Eric and Mike. Or you could check out the TV show podcast that I do with my friends Amanda and Steve called Small Screen Sessions. And this will be where I leave you. Yes, we'll stop right here. Take care. '93-'94, a music podcast with Travis Roy, is a labor of love. It is not and never will be monetized. Please don't sue.